Hello there, you are welcome to another science lesson. Now today we'll be looking at ecology, habitat and adaptation. Now at the end of this lesson, learners should be able to define habitats and adaptation, state and describe the types of habitat, state the examples and the organisms found in them, describe the adaptive feature of organisms that dwell in those habitats. Now, what is ecology? Ecology is a branch of biology that studies living organisms and their interactions with one another and their environment. Now, one of the aspects of ecology are habitat and adaptation, which we will be discussing about in this lesson. Now, moving along, what is a habitat? A habitat is the specific place where a living organism lives. This is the place where it derives all that it requires to thrive and survive, like food, water, shelter, heat, and the likes. Now moving along, let's look at the various types of habitat. Now we have basically two types of habitats. We have the aquatic habitat and terrestrial habitat. But we're going to be looking at the aquatic habitat first. What is the aquatic habitat? It describes the water habitat, and you can see the examples of aquatic habitat here. We have two divisions, which is freshwater habitat and marine habitat. Examples of freshwater habitats, we have the lake, the river, the pond, the streams, and so on. While the marine habitat, we have the sea and the ocean. The freshwater habitat doesn't have much salt in it, while the marine habitat has a greater amount of salt content. Now the terrestrial habitat describes the land habitat, and we have various examples here. We have the mountains, we have the grasslands, we have the polar regions, we have the wetlands, we have the rainforest, we have the deserts, we have the urban habitat, and so on and so forth. Now there's a special kind of terrestrial habitat called the arboreal habitat. The arboreal habitat is the habitat on top of trees where monkeys, birds, where they live. Now moving along, we'll be looking at adaptation. Adaptation is the change in living organisms which help them to survive in a particular habitat. This change could be structural, functional, or behavioral. Adaptations occur as a result of changes in the factors of the environment, like temperature, food, rainfall, heat, light, and so on. Now we have various examples of adaptation here. Now from this picture that you see here, we have a plant called the cactus. This cactus is specially adapted even to live in a dry and waterless region like the desert. Now, in order to reduce the water loss of the cactus, its leaves takes the shape of thorns or spine, and the stem become thicker and store water. Now in order for this cactus to store water, you can see that this one doesn't have leaves. It has what we call spines as leaves, so as to reduce water loss through transpiration. And it also has deep roots which go down into the ground so as to be able to get water. Now camel is another example of an organism or animal that dwells in desert region. Now camels live in a desert climate. They have longer eyelashes to prevent dust from entering inside. They have fast storage in their homes and hairy ears. They can stay without water for days. Their body is able to conserve water, so that it won't die of thirst. Now we have another animal here called the chameleon. Now the chameleon changes its color according to the environment and situation, such that it can prevent it from being a prey by other predators. So it changes the color of its skin. This type of adaptation is called camouflage. It blends in with its environment to avoid being eaten by a predator. Now we have the fox It has long ears and tails and wide body surfaces because it lives in a very warm region to prevent to maintain the heat of its body. Now we have other examples of adaptation. Now, dormancy, we have migration, we have hibernation, and we have camouflage. We've already talked about camouflage. Now, hibernation here is a type of functional adaptation. Migration is a type of behavioral adaptation. Anytime there is no water or food in a particular habitat, the organisms, they move away from that place in search of food and water. This is what we call migration. Camouflage is a structural adaptation where the skin is adapted to survive. So this is a type of structural adaptation. Dormancy is a type of behavioral adaptation. Now we've come to the end of today's lesson. It's a short one. Now, going to the summary, we can see that ecology is a branch of biology that studies living organisms and their interaction with one another and their environment. A habitat is the specific place where a living organism lives. There are two types of habitat: the terrestrial, which is the land habitat, and aquatic habitat, which is the water habitat. Adaptation is a change in living organisms which help them to survive in a particular habitat. The types are structural, functional, and behavioral adaptation. Now I want you to go through this assessment. Pause this video and endeavor to answer this question to see how much of it you will answer correctly. And I'll see you again next time. Bye bye.